Okay. It's 8 p.m, so therefore it's time for another live. Hope you can hear me. I'm going to attach that to there. I think that might make sense. Welcome. Hello. I'm just going to get set up here. Just give me a moment. Okay, all ready to rumble. So I can grab your comments, grab your questions, and go from there. Okay, looks like I'm live. Looks like it's all working. Congrats, winner. Yes. Thank you, everyone, so much. For those who don't already know and haven't seen social media for the last 24 hours, last night I won the award of Scotch Whisky Ambassador of the Year for Icons of Whisky. And I was joined at the Society Trifecta that from last night, which was great because I took out Scotch Whisky Ambassador. Andrew, our Cellar Master, took out Whisky Communicator of the Year through his work with Whisky and Wisdom, his personal writings, which are really great. If you've not read Andrew's articles yet or his columns, sometimes they're quite educational, sometimes they're quite opinionated, but they're always really on point. They've always got a really good angle of things to talk about there. And of course the third in that trifecta is Whisky and Almond took out Bar of the Year for the best Bar of the Year, which is, so Andrew won, Whisky and Almond won, and I won Scotch Whisky Ambassador of the Year. And so it would be remiss of me not to at least show you what it looks like in person. Here we go. That's the icon there. That's the award. So you can see what it's all about. I hope there's not too much junk on my table to clutter what all that looks like there. So you can have a look at the award there. It's showing around the right way. Isn't that exciting? So you can properly see it rather than seeing it back to front, which is what it might normally be. But as I said, I've changed my camera setup a little bit. So I hope that's all viewable and that's fantastic. Okay, well, it's a huge honour to win that, I'll be honest. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the trade and to the society. So it's something really cool for me to celebrate and for me to be a part of. Calte, look at all these people. This is fantastic. Just Dramming, Rowan Hitch, Robert Akers, Johnny Edwards, Our Hands, Whisky and Wisdom, Andrew, hello. Just Dramming, Our Hands, Calte, Dave Miller. Johnny Edwards says he voted for Blaney. I don't think Blaney was even a nominee. I don't know. I can't remember. But thank you all the same. Thank you. Well done, SNWS. Thank you, Our Hands. Special Aussie release to celebrate. Yeah, man, my hair is just a nightmare tonight, isn't it? Evening Icon. Amazing set of bottles in the reflection. Yes, there's some stuff on this table. And there's a reflection over there. Yes, all sorts of stuff over there. Barrel samples in the morning and an award on the evening. Great day. Yeah, Monday was a great day, I'll be honest. It was a really good day. It was really great to connect with so many people last night of the trade. Bartenders, bar managers, and other ambassadors of different categories. There was an Irish whiskey category. There was a world whiskey category. And of course, Andrew winning was fantastic. That's just amazing because he is, I think of Andrew as probably the best whiskey communicator in Australia in many ways. He writes so much great content through Whisky and Wisdom primarily. And he's done a few other things with different people, like Drinks Adventures through SNWS and things like that, which is great. London next, yeah. Jimmy Martin joined, good to see you. Only a small hair flick. No, I got it cut. I got it tidied up the other day, so it's looking a bit haphazard tonight. But I'm not really worried about that too much tonight. But we're not even talking about my hair. Damn it. Okay, so I was going to show you one preview of a bottling that's upcoming. Another sort of Christmas preview. I was going to talk about those samples that you saw. I'm not going to reveal what's in them just yet. It's a bit premature, but I'll tell you a little bit what that one involves, what's going on here with that. And I'll give you one of my tips, which... yeah, right. You make me laugh, Andrew. Matt Music MW joined. Good to see you. Sally joined. Good to see you. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of things to go over here. There's three things I wanted to touch on. The upcoming, another upcoming, I think it may already be on the website though. So when I say upcoming, it's sort of like just a current release. But it's getting refeatured in the Christmas outturn, and it's one that I think people often overlook, and I'll talk about why. The samples and note-taking. Yeah. when we get an early Christmas present. Yeah, sure. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about G4.18. Now, I'm only talking about whiskey tonight. I'm not actually drinking it tonight because, well, look, we partied pretty hard a bit last night, which is great. And I always recommend people take a night off now and then, which is good. So I'm going to I'll just talk about a bit about this for now, and I might have a nose, but I'm not going to have a dram tonight. There we go. I'm going to show you what that is. That's G4.18. Sorry, I'm laughing at that comment, just dramming. But that's the Paradise Patisserie, a 29-year-old single grain Scotch whiskey, single cask, in the juicy oak and vanilla profile. It probably could have almost fallen into old and dignified in that age statement, but the flavour profiles don't follow age statements. They follow actual flavour, which means that they're always separate. The colour strip and the flavour profile is always separate from the actual stats of that whiskey. You could almost have like some whiskey might be, a 3-year-old in spicy and sweet, which we saw with Cornography. That's definitely almost could be a young and sprightly, really, but it wasn't sprightly. It was rich in mahogany notes, and which I talked about in the previous live stream. So Just Dramming wrote, Matt's hair flick is like a butterfly effect. Every time he does something monumental happens in the whiskey world somewhere. I'll take that as a compliment. This is a single cask, single grain whiskey. Let's examine what that means. So malt whiskey is malted barley. So when you see a single cask, single malt whiskey, like this bottle sitting on my desk of 112.48 is a good example, a lovely whiskey from the Gathering series from September. That's a single malt Scotch whiskey, so it's 100% malted barley and a single cask. Whereas with grain whiskey, different grain whiskies use different types of grain other than malted barley. The grain is often cheaper to procure per tonne, has really high yield, and imparts a different flavour profile. It's not as malty, generally speaking, as malt whiskey. It doesn't have that rich malty flavour that you often get off some malt whiskies. But what it does have is a different perspective to whiskey. Now, I was at a tasting in about March last year, and where I got to sit in the same room and hear from Charlie McLean and Dave Broom talk. And that was fantastic. That was at the back, and where was it? I was near the Oak Barrel. But it was Dave Broom, and who's a prolific Scotch whisky author and host, and Charlie McLean, same again, prolific author and host, and they both got remarkable palates, these guys, and talking about different types of whiskey, which was lovely. Now, one of the things Dave said at that tasting was that people often unfairly overlook grain whiskey, saying that Dave was saying this a year ago, that he reckons that there's a wave coming in the next few years where grain whiskey is going to make a huge resurgence, and we're going to see like grain whiskey being Scotch, like as in like grain Scotch whiskey, making a huge resurgence worldwide, and will alleviate some pressure onto malt whiskey distilleries who are seeing the brunt of where there's quite a few distilleries now, obviously that are their sales their demand is outstripping supply is the easiest way to say it. And so therefore we're seeing price increases quite a bit across the board. I often have my head so far into the society and independent bottlings and single casks that I sometimes forget but I don't really pay too much attention to what new releases and core range new releases often come out. And you see some of the pricing on them and you go, that's the same price as a single cask. That's the same price as a cask strength whiskey, and it's 40 or 43%. And so it's a bit disappointing sometimes when you see that. And I reckon grain whiskey in the next few years will alleviate that a bit. We've already started to see inroads, not always successfully, but inroads into commercialising grain whiskey through things like Hague Club, which was a tremendously uninteresting whiskey, but served a purpose and will appeal to some. Not after Hague Club, we won't. Yeah. I think Hague Club was I think it was a mistake. I think it was a poorly placed product that didn't taste very good. The quality wasn't great, and the celebrity endorsement, the whole David Beckham thing, was a bit sort of lost, I think, in the mix. It could have been done a lot better. I think they'll learn from those. I think both Diageo and other companies, other large grain distilleries companies will learn from those mistakes and go, well, you know what? There is a future in grain whiskey as a singular product, and I think we'll start to see it in the next few years, especially as these companies and distilleries learn from these mistakes. I mean, if you remember, we can point at I could point at a half a dozen off the top of my head, single malt whiskey releases from core range bottlers, from OBs or original bottlers, there that were quite honestly not very good. I mean, as in not just I'm talking the quality, but I'm talking about the whole package, the sales statement, the placement, the pricing was all wrong, and that's often the case of a whiskey that's if you look at the re-release from 3 years ago, the first re-release of the new Mortlach, that was dire. I mean, it was what do they call it? Rare old and very rare old, and they were overpriced. They were no age statement. They were 500 ml. It was like, what's going on here? And now I think they've seen the light. They've gone back to age statements. That we've seen there's a 12, a 16, and 18 or something. I think that's great. So they'll learn from those mistakes. They've kept some of that core identity of that sort of rectangular bottle. I'm going off on a tangent here, but it wasn't oversized perfume bottle. I thought the bottle looked very cool though. I thought it was a real sort of boom, a real sort of cool looking piece of glass. But what was inside it was utterly disappointing. I actually never got a bottle of Hague Club. I tasted it a few times, different places, but I thankfully never ended up with one. I'm not sure they even still make it. If they do, is there one called the Clubman as well, which was like a cheaper one or a dearer one? Let's put it in a taller bottle. Anyway, I don't remember. So anyway, my point is, single cask grain whiskey is obviously single cask. In this case, it's a 29-year-old from a first fill barrel ex bourbon. A first fill bourbon barrel, 29-year-old. So much of that sort of rich sort of patisserie notes, vanilla, creme brulee, popcorn, salty popcorn, ginger cake. It's a lovely whiskey, and my point here is that, and this is a big call, but I don't think that I think anyone who derides grain whiskey as inferior to malt whiskey or just a cheap blend filler is missing out entirely, and I think is missing the point entirely as well of seeing that breadth of diversity and flavour that you can get from grain is just as strong as you can get in malt. I mean, the flavours are different. They're often lighter. They're often more sort of floral. They're often more sort of you often get I'd say the diversity factor of flavours in grain is narrower, just like it is in Armagnac, just like it is in Armagnac. Whereas the diversity factor of flavours in American bourbons is quite low as well. But when it's really good, it's really good. It's the same with I often think of it as sort of like a difference on a pie graph. It's like I see Armagnac here and bourbon here, but I see sort of Scotch whiskey sort of much bigger slice of the pie in terms of you can have everything from sort of really light and delicate sort of soft sort of Altavane style spirit, you can all the way up to heavy sort of Ardbeg style spirit, and the diversity of casks across, of course, is massive, and thanks to the SWA is growing every month, it seems. So we're going to see lots of changes there, but I think writing off grain whiskey as inferior to malt is a mistake, and that's why if you jump on one of these, I think you won't be disappointed at all. Think about this for a second. That's a 29-year-old first fill bourbon barrel, single cask 29-year-old whiskey. It was distilled 1989, and it's $320 a bottle. If you can find me a 29-year-old whiskey for $320, I'll buy it. Honestly, that's ridiculous. That's one of the best value whiskeys I think out there. And that's, again, in the Christmas outturn. So if you're thinking about then, I don't know if it's on the website already. I'd have to check, I'm sorry, off the top of my head. I'm going to grab some of these comments and some of these questions because he's going to say so in a book. No, it was an oversized perfume, but sorry, I read that. Wasn't handcrafted for smoothness. Right, Acres, you know what? Yes, exactly, Stirrer. Yeah, 29-year-old and only a B price, not bad, exactly. So he's referring to the fact that B price, that was a B category dram on the Baradarci Rose for our 3-night pop-up, which I'm still just on the cusp of recovering from. So you can see the B there, which was printed on the back of the bottle, just reminded me what we were dealing with. Oak and sweetness notes. Yeah, it's lovely, exactly. It tastes almost like a pina colada. Wow, that's a really good tasting note, Sally. It does. It's almost got that sort of like tropical, like pastries and tropical fruits kind of thing, and pina colada, almost pineapple notes. It's lovely. Yes, already got one. Yeah, so okay, you already got one. How many bottles were allocated to Australia in that one? Again, that's a really good question, of which I don't know the exact answer, but it'll be on the website. I don't want to have a computer in front of me whilst doing these live streams. It feels a bit impersonal. Cue the music. Yeah, exactly. Cigar Malt joined. Good to see you, Cigar Malt. Thanks for joining in. The second thing I wanted to touch on tonight. So that was my little rant about grain. I think if you overlook grain, you're overlooking a big part of lovely Scotch whisky that's out there, that it has I won't say equal complexity, but a different level of complexity, and it has it's a remarkably delicious kind of spirit that is underrated and overlooked. If that was a 29-year-old malt whisky, that would easily be $500-600. And to get a 29-year-old single cask, single grain for only $320 means that I think we're on the cusp, we're on the wave of seeing, I think, new grains coming and seeing that appreciation for grain whiskey as a product, especially from core range, which by the time core range comes around to it, and there's, the society's often in front of these movements, but if it's, once core range comes around to it, it's going to be like, we'll look back and go, wow, imagine being able to access a 29-year-old version of this 3-year-old whiskey for only $40 more than they're charging, or whatever it is. Anyway, I think you miss out on some of that nuance then. Whiskey Ledger, good to see you. Jono Hillwood joined, good to see you. Any G's get a black label? It's a really good question, Robert. We haven't seen any black label G's yet. We've even had, even though it was recently a 39-year-old single cask grain that was like $380 or $390. That wasn't even qualified for black yet. So no. Short answer, no. So we haven't seen any black G yet, but we might. You never know. The black premium labels, which I don't have any on this desk to show you, sorry, are sort of like our premium collection, and then there's one above that, which is called the Vaults collection, which comes in a box, like a proper sort of wooden box. The Vaults collection, we won't see more than, say, 1 or 2 a year ever. So, well, not ever, but really on average. If we see more than 1 or 2 a year, I don't think we will. But the Vaults collection is meant to be casks of absolute distinction that have scored some of the highest ever on Tasting Panel, and are some of the oldest and rarest stocks coming out. So, behind me. I can't see it. Maybe you can. Oh, there is. Yeah, there is. I'm an idiot. It's right there. So yeah, you go. There's a 38.24 and a 27.112. Yeah, I found it finally. There you go. So so they're sort of premium livery, which is sort of one step, a little bit dearer and often a little bit older, and then but not outrageously expensive. Like sort of like, depending on what it is, between sort of $400 to $600 a bottle, generally speaking. And after sort of $600 plus, we'll start to see some Vaults collection releases, which, as I say, casks of amazing distinction, which we might see 1 or 2 of a year at most. I think I need to fix the Ardbeg sign. Yeah, it's fallen over. Sample. So I posted on my Twitter and story the other day that these are some samples coming in. I've got the distillery names and cask codes and stuff in front of me, but I can't reveal them yet. That's a bit premature, because it's for a project that we're working on with Partner Bar. So that's how much I can tell you. It's a project we're working on with Partner Bar where they'll get the whole cask, and they want to pick the cask and work through a few samples. That's 3 of 6 of them. There's 3 more over there. And they get to pick through a few cask samples and see what fits their brief. And they've already sent me a brief months ago, working out what kind of style of whiskey they're looking for, what kind of age statement, what kind of sort of breadth of style and tasting note they'd be ideally looking for. And then the UK panel go ahead and pick out some samples, and in this case 6, and they'll have 6 to pick from in this case. And one of them, this is rather exciting. Now, there's no point in me really talking about them because I can't really talk about it yet. But one of them, I think it's that one, yes. This one, which I'm not going to show you the label on, sorry, is a 7-year-old whiskey, so it's the youngest of them, but it was 5 years ex-bourbon and 2 years ex-rum. And the rum cask that it matured in was a society rum cask, one of our rums, as in like an R8 or R9 or something. So it's 5 plus 2. So it's a youngish kind of cask. It's a 7-year-old whiskey. We've seen some lovely 7 and 6 and 5-year-old whiskies, as you know, but that have spent an extra 2 years in one of a society rum casks. Now that's pretty cool. I can't say Calte, sorry, not yet. Whiskey Uncovered, yes, award-winning hair. There you go, one more for you. I can't seem to control it today. I put some product in it this morning and still misbehaving. Adrian joined. Good to see Adrian. So that was the first thing I want to touch on. Grain. Second thing I want to touch on is a little sneaky project with a partner bar that we're working on, where they'll get the whole cask. Of course, it'll be available to all members, of course, around the country, but it'll be with their label, and it'll be a special release for next year. Jeremy Donay, congrats. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Yes, I was talking about how we picked up a trifecta of Icon Awards last night. Myself, Andrew, and Whisky and Almond, which was fantastic. What a night. Seriously, what a fantastic evening. The third thing I want to touch on tonight, whilst I've got you here, Whisky with Character shirt. Yes, I'm wearing a Whisky with Character t-shirt, for those with a keen eye. It was actually a campaign back in May in the UK and in Australia called Whisky with Character. And they had some t-shirts that we were handed out at some of the events. So I'm still wearing one. I've still got an old one here, which is fantastic. No, it doesn't have me on the back. It just has some of the general caricatures that they did for other people on it. I don't think my caricature made a t-shirt. If it did, I didn't get one. I'm sorry, but my caricature was made unfiltered a few times and online, and it's even on Giphy now as well online. So there's a GIF of me. The society made a GIF of my face with my eyebrow moving or something, which was great. That was good fun. That's good fun. Actually, I can probably use it in the stories, which I'll do later on tonight. Thank you, Jeremy, very much. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. Ooh. Third thing I want to touch on tonight. These are just three very separate but little topics of almost like a roundup. Some little things I want to touch on. Hope you can hear me okay. Just make sure that mic is a bit close. Third thing I want to touch on tonight was, should have been a hair flick gif. Yeah. They could probably do that. I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is a Glenmorangie branded one. It's not a society branded one or anything. I don't really care. It's a tasting notes book. It's just a tasting notes book. It's a whiskey ledger, if you like, a place for you to keep notes and keep track of what you've been tasting. I recommend everyone do this, especially early on in your whiskey journey. This is something I talked about in one of my articles online about tips for new whiskey drinkers, those getting into the category, those understanding single cask whiskey. Keep a book, just a notebook of some description is always good. I'm a big fan of sort of like blank page ones generally, because I find they you can write your own expansive notes rather than those ones where it says like there's tasting wheel ones where you got to put X's and different things. I find that's a bit limiting to the imagination personally. But keep notes. I've kept a few in this one. It's only a few pages long so far. Just a new one here for me. Write down, even if you think that in tasting note your writing is simplistic, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be a master taster or anything like that, or an SMWS panelist level of to know what you're drinking. All that you have to know is that you enjoy it, and if you enjoy it, and what do you enjoy about it. And how I go about that is the same way as I go about it now, as I go about it then, was if you say something's sweet, it's got a sweet nose to it, it's almost sweet. Just drill down 2 levels from there. So what kind of sweetness are you getting? How do you and so let's say it's sweet. You say, okay, what kind of? It's like obviously a sugary kind of sweetness. Okay, let's say it's a sugary kind of sweetness, and you say what kind of sugar? Is it like white sugar, brown sugar, demerara sugar, casting sugar, baking sugar, whatever? What kind of sugar is it? So that's like your 2 levels drilled right there, and then you could adapt that into a food or drink scenario. So let me do that one. So you say it's sweet. What kind of sweetness? Sugar sweetness. What kind of sugar sweetness? Let's say brown sugar. And then you say, and then you say it's like brown sugar on something. It's like brown sugar on pancakes or something. Brown sugar and lemon on pancakes. Lovely. So there you go. And you work your way up from the top down. And then you say something's like, something's, almost, if on the other side of it, it could say something that is quite savory. What kind of savory note is it? Is it like sort of like beef kind of savory? Is it kind of like chalky kind of savory? And you sort of work backwards from there and push down from there. SMWS UK joined. Good to see you, UK. Thank you. Lee Wallace, Ducket Bucket, Notes of LPG. You'd know that one, wouldn't you? Robert, you'd know that one indeed. Yes, cool. Thank you so much for joining in. Good to see you, Ducket Bucket. Cool. So that was my 3 main tips for tonight, just to talk for about 30 minutes or so. And I'll just recap for those who've just joined. First is, don't underestimate grain whiskey. If you think it's any less complex or any less interesting than malt whiskey, then you're missing out on a world of flavour that is remarkable and has so much going on. And as I said, my prediction is, I reckon Dave Broom's prediction from a year ago is bang on the money. I reckon we're going to see a new wave of grain whiskies coming soon, not just from the society, of course, but from core range bottlers, and that's why I'm coming back now saying I reckon we'll look back at 2019 and go, I can get a 29-year-old whiskey for $320. That's ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. I've paid that much for a 3-year-old whiskey once before. It's absurd. I wouldn't do that too much anymore these days, but. And then the second point I made was those samples, which I sort of teased out before, which are here. It's for a special project for those wondering what's going on. It's with a partner bar. We're doing a project for a private cask for them to serve at the bar and to sell to members. And the third, final point I wanted to make was just, as I was saying, keep some tasting notes. Get yourself a notebook, write some tasting notes down, and then you can keep track of what you've enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. You can have your own scoring system if you like. It trains your palate. It gives you a good memory base to work from, and it gets you to work through different things. That's all from me tonight. Let's flip some grain whiskey investment time. I don't think so. That's all from me tonight. A 30-minute catch up tonight. Post icons, of course, which was last night. I'll only because my ego's massive at the moment. I'll show you what that award looks like once more. Bam! Oh, that bottle's probably in the way. But there you go. I'm super humbled to have won that, especially around peers and colleagues that I respect so much. And for Andrew to win Best Communicator and for Whisky Downman to win Bar of the Year, it's fantastic. So that's all from me tonight. Thank you again for tuning in, as always. You have a lovely evening, and I'll catch you all tomorrow night, of course, is Wednesday night. I have an event on tomorrow night, but I'll see how I go on timing. It'll probably be an impromptu, out in public kind of live stream, so that means I might get on a bit of a rant on or something. Who knows? And then Thursday night, I'm hosting an event, a private members event. So I'll see how we go on Thursday night as well. It's going to be an interesting couple of days ahead for live stream. But if it's not me, it might be Andrew, and if it's otherwise, we'll catch you all on the other side. Go on live with you. Ducket Bucket. I go live at 8 p.m. every single night, except for nights out of special circumstance that I can't, of course. Like last night's Icon Awards, which you can always catch up with these, by the way. If you miss out on the 8 p.m. start, which obviously you have, Liam. Liam might do one as well. That was pretty funny. It's probably the most talked about live stream we've done yet. Train station. Yeah, train station ones were always fun as well, Cal. That was a good one. That was a good rant. So just that last point I want to make whilst I've got you. So it's 8 p.m. every night, Ducket. It's 8 p.m. every single night. So if you miss the 8 p.m. start, it'll be on our Insta story within 5 minutes after I finish, and it'll be on Instagram. It'll be on YouTube within 10 minutes of finishing as well. So if you miss out, you can always catch up. But it's always good doing it live. That's all from me tonight. Like I said, I've tried saying that 3 times now, and this time I'm actually saying it. So thank you, and I'll see you all tomorrow night. Like I said, I've got events the next 2 nights. So see how we go. Cheers.